They did not build railroads, they built kingdoms, and then they buried the evidence. In the 19th century, a handful of men seized control of the arteries of entire continents, dictating which cities would thrive, which towns would vanish, and which governments would bend. The wealth they accumulated was not measured in money alone. It was measured in obedience. Before we reach the name at the very top of this list, a dynasty so deeply embedded in national infrastructure that its grip lasted well beyond the Gilded Age. Understand this. Every entry below it is a warning of what concentrated power over movement, trade, and territory can do to a civilization. 10. The Illinois Central. The Illinois Central Railroad was granted more land by the United States federal government than many European nations occupy today. Over 2.5 million acres handed to private investors in 1850 in exchange for laying track. What followed was not development. It was colonization from within. The men who controlled the Illinois Central determined which Midwestern farmers could reach market and which could not. They set freight rates like feudal tolls. Abraham Lincoln was their lawyer before he was their president. Number 9, the Great Northern Empire. James J. Hill built the Great Northern Railway without a single dollar of federal land grant. He did not need one. He financed it through sheer financial dominance, bought out competitors, and drove rival lines into bankruptcy with surgical precision. When the Northern Securities Company, his holding trust, was declared an illegal monopoly by the Supreme Court in 1904, Hill simply restructured. The empire did not fall, it reorganized. Power that's sophisticated rarely disappears, it adapts. Rewrote, the Rothschild Rail Network. The Rothschild banking family financed railroads across France, Austria, and the Italian peninsula at a time when rail was the most strategically valuable asset on the continent. They did not merely lend, they owned. Their rail investments gave them advanced knowledge of troop movements, trade flows, and political instability, intelligence that translated directly into bond market advantage. A family already synonymous with financial dominance used steel rails to extend that dominance into physical geography itself. 7. The Canadian Pacific Syndicate. The Canadian Pacific Railway was sold to the public as a nation-building project. It was, in reality, a wealth extraction operation of staggering scale. The syndicate behind it, men like Donald Smith and George Stephen, received land grants totaling 25 million acres, alongside cash subsidies and decades of tax exemption. Indigenous communities were displaced without compensation. Towns were moved when the syndicate demanded better terrain. The Canadian Pacific did not follow the nation. The nation followed the Canadian Pacific. Number 6. Vanderbilt's New York Central. Cornelius Vanderbilt consolidated the New York Central Railroad through a campaign of financial warfare so brazen it forced legislators to invent new laws. At one point, he simply stopped his trains at the New Jersey border, severing New York City from the national rail network, and waited. The city surrendered within days. His fortunate death in 1877 exceeded the entire United States Treasury Reserve. His son William doubled it within 8 years. Few dynasties have combined this level of personal ruthlessness with this scale of infrastructural control. 5. The Union Pacific Scandal. The Union Pacific Railroad is remembered as the Great Western Line. It should be remembered as the Great Western Fraud. The Crédit Mobilier scandal, exposed in 1872, revealed that the construction company building the railroad was owned by the same men commissioning it. They billed the federal government for costs that were fictitious, pocketed the difference, and distributed shares to congressmen to ensure silence. The railroad was built. The public paid twice. The men responsible died wealthy. Some celebrated as pioneers. 4. The South American Rail. Barons, British investors, financed the majority of South America's 19th century rail network and structured every contract to ensure the wealth flowed north. Argentine, Brazilian, and Chilean governments signed agreements, guaranteeing profit minimums to foreign rail companies, regardless of actual earnings. When lines underperformed, taxpayers covered the difference. The rail network that was supposed to industrialize a continent instead served as a mechanism for extracting raw materials cheaply and funneling returns to London counting houses. Infrastructure as instrument of empire, without a single soldier. 3. Harriman's silent railroad empire. Edward Henry Harriman is less famous than Vanderbilt or Rockefeller. That is precisely why he belongs this high on this list. Harriman acquired the Union Pacific when it was bankrupt and transformed it into the most efficiently operated railroad in American history, then quietly absorbed the Southern Pacific and nearly seized the Northern Pacific in a stock war that briefly crashed Wall Street in 1901. J.P. Morgan himself was forced to negotiate with Harriman. A man operating almost entirely in the shadows came within days of controlling the entire American rail network. 2. The Indian Railway Extraction Machine. British colonial administrators described the Indian Railway network as a gift to the subcontinent. Economists studying the data 2 centuries later describe it as one of the most efficient wealth extraction mechanisms in recorded history. The rail lines were financed by Indian taxpayers through guaranteed return bonds issued in London, built to British gauge specifications for British military logistics, and priced to carry British goods cheaply, while Indian manufacturers paid punishing rates. Historian Utsa Patnaik estimates Britain extracted over $45 trillion from India during the colonial period. The railways were the mechanism that made that scale of extraction possible. Now, Number 1. The Stanford-Huntington cartel. 4 men, Leland Stanford, Collis Huntington, Mark Hopkins, and Charles Crocker, came to be known as the Big Four. They built the Central Pacific Railroad using federal land grants, federal loans, and the near-enslaved labor of over 10,000 Chinese workers, paid a fraction of white wages. But the construction was only the beginning. Through a web of holding companies, they then proceeded to own every competing rail line in California, every port warehouse in San Francisco, every ferry crossing, and every major stagecoach route. They did not merely move goods. They taxed the entire economic life of a state. Farmers who refused their freight rates found their crops rotting. Merchants who sought alternatives found none. When the California legislature attempted to regulate them, the Big Four placed their own men inside the regulatory body. Leland Stanford became governor of California and later a United States senator, while remaining a controlling shareholder in the railroad he was supposedly overseeing. The fortune built on this cartel endured long after the men themselves were gone, laundered into university endowments and civic monuments that bear their names to this day. If this surprised you, the next video goes even deeper.